peace of mind. I think it's a calmness, and kind of a balance, a harmony. So having like a relaxed, kind of a awareness of your outside world, but being calm.
Welcome to the Verdict Signal podcast, where we feature how top attorneys help people make informed choices, avoid common mistakes, and move forward with confidence. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Verdict Signal, and today we're expanding our conversations to the experts who protect what people build, their careers, families, and businesses. I have David Roddenberry, the co-founder of Mama Bear Law, a specialized personal injury and medical malpractice law firm that combines legal advocacy with advanced technology to help families navigate complex negligence cases. A graduate of Harvard College, where he earned a degree in cognitive neuroscience and graduated summa cum laude, David went on to receive his law degree from Harvard Law School. As a Marshall Scholar, he also earned an MSc in International Health Policy from the London School of Economics and an MBA from the University of Oxford. Before entering the legal and health technology sectors, he worked with leading organizations including Boston Consulting Group, D.E. Shaw, Goldman Sachs, and Johnson & Johnson. At Mama Bear Law, David oversees a practice focused on serious personal injury and medical malpractice matters, where he leverages artificial intelligence and advanced analytics to evaluate complex medical records, identify critical facts, and help families pursue accountability and justice. So, David, welcome and glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's start from the very beginning, David. How did you first get interested in the legal field?
So both my parents are attorneys, and so that was kind of an initial interest. And then, it's I think that desire for justice is pretty compelling, and that's really what motivated me to be a part of the legal field.
Okay. And what was it specifically where you decided to transition into the personal injury side specifically?
Yeah, so I was doing health tech startup for the last 20 years, and the change with AI and the opportunity that it presents for disruption was really compelling. And I think the legal profession in particular is one that's going to look radically different in 20 years than it does today. And so I wanted to be a part of that change. And so I figured, how can I participate as a AI entrepreneur in the legal tech change? And initially, my legal experience was on the big law side. And so initially we were thinking or trying tools that would work for big law, but the market disruption is slower in big law. The plaintiffs firms, because they're compensated based on results, they have a desire for an efficiency as opposed to, a defense firm or a big law firm, which is compensated on an hourly basis. And so I found that most of the AI change was initially happening in the plaintiff side. And so we built a legal AI tool initially called LegalFi to write letters for plaintiffs firms. And as we were having some success with that, I decided, well, I have this legal degree. Let's also form a law firm. And that's really been great too, because I see, the impact of the legal technology, not only for our clients at LegalFi, but also as a firm itself. And it's just broadened my awareness of the tools, the ability of AI to transform the profession.
Okay. And your background is also in medicine, cognitive neuroscience. And so is that kind of your background in medical is kind of what led you to really focus on the medical malpractice as well?
Yes, but I would say probably more specifically, it's the opportunity for AI to have an impact. Medical malpractice is really complex, and very few attorneys have the appropriate background to evaluate, and even fewer intake people. And so if you have had a medical mistake happen to you and you're looking for a lawyer, you're navigating a really uphill battle of communicating your story convincingly and showing people why what happened to you was a mistake. And so AI really has that opportunity for everyone to understand, what the standard of care is for their particular set of problems, and was there a deviation from that standard of care. And so we find the AI to be immensely effective at cutting through, analyzing medical records and helping people, where a mistake was made. And we think it's going to really democratize access to medical malpractice lawyers, and hopefully, lead to better medicine overall, as people become more accountable and aware of what should be happening.
Okay. And what's one thing that you wish more people understood about working with a personal injury attorney or any situation like medical malpractice?
I think how stacked up it is against you. I think it's so disappointing. Most cases that come in, we're not able to help. There aren't attorneys right now. In order to pursue a medical malpractice case, you basically have to have other doctors say that what happened to you was not the standard of care, and the doctors are very reticent to provide that verdict on their colleagues. It's and the range of acceptable behavior is really, to me, before I had spent amount of time in this field, was really shocking. I mean, I thought for sure, you go in for a colonoscopy and you get a perforated colon and you're in the ICU for a week. Oh, that has to be medical malpractice. Well, no, actually, most attorneys won't take that case because, it was part of you disclaimed, that it's a known risk of a colonoscopy. And you would have to show that, something, it wasn't your body reacting to the colonoscopy, that the doctor actually did something negligent, like took a phone call or, looked up from the screen instead of, and getting to that level of detail before AI was pretty much unheard of. Now you can get access to the full, as a patient, you're entitled to all of that information. So you can get access to everything that happened while you were sedated, and you can run it through AI, and you can understand if a deviation occurred. And then you could actually bring a case. So I think that that's been the most surprising thing to me about how many people who've had really traumatic medical experiences are locked out of the legal system right now, and hopefully, we'll have more access because of the really the amazing ability of AI to analyze information so quickly.
Okay. So is there anything that these people can do in these situations when they're facing this? Is there anything that they can prepare for? Anything that they can do to try and increase their chances, or are they kind of really just at the mercy of the system? And then hopefully tools like you're talking about AI and all this is going to just help them with their existing case.
Well, in advance of any medical care, I personally have a Claude agent that I have all of my medical records in, and I, add every post-visit summary and look for, what questions should I ask the doctor. I think, as a patient, you should equip yourself with that. It's, very easy to take advantage of, and there are free versions or low-cost versions you can utilize of the different AI tools, and so that way you're a more informed patient. In fact, I've had family members who have had additional tests done and found things, and they only had the test done because they asked the doctor. It was something that they came to prepared to the medical visit and said, what about this? And the doctor said, sure, yeah, you could do that. It's not that the doctor wouldn't recommend it. It's that the doctor's very busy and the doctor has lots of patients. And so it just allows you to, be aware of your health in a more granular way. On the flip side, after a mistake's been made, your records you're entitled to them. Now, requesting records is harder. They deliberately make it more difficult than it should be, because there really is a lot of information. And so if you send a note to your medical provider or facility and say, send me all your records on my case, well, the definition of all is vague. And so I've seen all kinds of things come back. And so, that's where Mama Bear Law, we offer free case assessments. So we'll help you for free get your medical records, and then you can run it through, or we can run it through AI and analyze it for you. But just making sure that you're getting everything, every piece of data after a mistake's been made. And then running that through the AI will allow you to really understand, was a mistake made? And when you run it through AI, you also need to temper your expectations, because the AI, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it's very sycophantic. It wants to please you. So it's going to look for things that, maybe, arguably something could have gone wrong, but maybe not to the standard of care, or the threshold that you would need for a lawsuit. And so, also need to be cognizant about that too. So don't, just because the AI says you've been wrong doesn't mean that you necessarily have a case. You also still need to temper that. And so maybe, when you talk to the AI, ask it to take a pessimistic view on your case, and kind of dialogue with your AI, so that you get a balanced opinion, not just, an AI that wants you to be happy.
Okay. Now, you talked quite a bit about the AI side of it. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into that. So the good parts, which you kind of talked about using AI to really dig through a lot of this very complex system and even probably material. But then there's also the other side of it where you talk about AI can just be, it can hallucinate. It can maybe not give you the right advice. I'm sure you also get people coming to you with just very different ideas of how things should go, because they're like, oh, I went to ChatGPT and ChatGPT told me this, so I'm entitled to whatever it is. Or hey, these other cases, they got $10 million, so I deserve $10 million. So how do you balance between those two, where there's a lot of potential with AI, but then maybe people aren't using it correctly, or it's not given the correct information? How do you balance between those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this stage, as a practitioner, grabbing and utilizing AI as much as possible is, my number one recommendation. Like, I, with all of my employees, like, I ask them on every task that they're doing, can this be done with AI? And you know what? 90% plus can. And so they just have to create the skill and train themselves to do it. So it's an incredible tool. In terms of, consumers, or potential plaintiffs misconstruing information, it's absolutely it is a challenge every day. And so creating systems that allow people to feel heard, and validated, but also tempered, so that as a professional, you're not spending all of your time kind of managing their expectations. So we actually have an AI who interacts with them as they dialogue. So the AI is very patient and takes the information, and then we are able to communicate with them, potentially over email as a response after that. And so that way we're not, spending voluminous hours as attorneys, talking to people who, feel like they have more of a case than they do. We have the AI kind of set up as the intake, and the AI is always there. The AI is willing to listen. The AI is very empathetic. But then the AI synthesizes it with a very pessimistic view and kind of helps craft the response that then the attorney can review and send them in response. So I think anything that empowers consumers to get more information is unquestionably a good thing. I think in terms of false expectations, that it definitely, if you don't create systems to manage people who come in with this new AI information, you're going to struggle, because there hundreds of pages people are coming to us with. I mean, it's really amazing how the AI can be very wordy,
Mm-hmm.
and they send you very, very detailed information, and they feel like there's more that could or should be done for them, when when the reality is, that's, maybe a one perspective, but not necessarily an accurate perspective
Mm-hmm.
of the merits of their case.
Okay. Now, I'm sure that you get a lot of clients that come to you and they have just misconceptions, or there's myths that they believe, particularly when it comes to personal injury or the medical malpractice side of law. What would you say some of the most common myths or misconceptions that you hear from clients?
I think it's, um, usually people are coming to us at their worst moment,
Mm,
and they want to blame someone, for what happened. So, we have a lot of cancer cases that come in, and, who do you blame, when your loved one gets lung cancer? And, the doctor is an easy scapegoat. But, just because the doctor elected watchful waiting on a lung nodule doesn't mean that it was malpractice, or a loved one dies in the ER, and you either don't understand all of the medical procedures that were done, or frankly you don't know, and it's easy to say something must have gone wrong, like
Mm.
my loved one shouldn't have died, like there's no way that they should have left. They went in for a surgery. They should never have died in that circumstance. So, the most common, I think, for some people, the doctor becomes a scapegoat, when that's really not the case at all. The doctors did their very best, and we're just trying to um, uh, help your loved one. And so
Mhm.
that's been the kind of the most common, um, some of the most common things that have come up.
Okay. And I guess when it comes to if they do have a case, I guess just for people who have never been in a situation like this before, how how should they kind of handle the entire situation? Because I mean, it's high stakes situation. Maybe a loved one died. Maybe because of some negligence, now they're in dire financial straits. The future is uncertain. So, how do you kind of recommend to your clients how they need to try and handle a very, very tough and uh, probably unique situation to them that they've never experienced before?
Yeah. So your lawyer is your partner, but they're not you're not going to just outsource this problem to them. Like, don't assume, "Oh, I've signed a lawyer or I'm in good shape."
Mhm.
I would never recommend people do that. I would say you need to be kind of driving the case, because the lawyers are very busy. And you're going to know all of the things that might have come up. They might not even know to ask you. Maybe you made videos of your birth, that the lawyer didn't even know about.
Mhm.
Or there was a nurse that you talked to, who might, be willing to give color. So, documenting your experience with the incident, and then communicating and being on top of the lawyer and the law firm throughout the journey is what I would definitely recommend. Like that, you know, you have to advocate for yourself even once you've found an attorney. Now at Mama Bear Law, we're trying to do a much better job at that.
Mhm.
But having worked with a number of personal injury law firms, I have seen things slip through the cracks,
Mhm.
that really I find shocking. And I think potential plaintiffs should, if they are engaging with an attorney, they should not just assume that it's being taken care of. They should be on top of the law firm, and they should be doing their very best to gather every piece of information and really think it through for themselves, and dialogue with the AI and talk to family members, and just really make sure that their perspective on the incident is fully documented and incorporated into whatever the law firm's putting together.
Okay. And going deeper into that side of it, how do you approach the guiding people through this process, setting the right expectations? Because again, this is probably the first time they're going through this. They have no idea kind of what to expect. So, what's your approach to setting those expectations and then guiding them through this process so they feel informed and supported throughout the whole process?
Yeah, yeah. So the first, it's expectations up front with over communication. I think some people are like, "Oh, okay, this will be done in 6 months." No, try 6 years. And
Mhm.
in terms of some jurisdictions, in terms of a payout, you're talking 10 plus years.
Mhm.
So this is not something that is going to happen overnight. They're not going to get some admission of I made a mistake. Like the system's not set up for that. So if you're looking for being clear about what your goals are and the timeline, from our perspective, is the most important. And then we have an AI mama, and we pair them, and she has access to their entire case, including all of their medical records as they're required. And we encourage them to update her, as frequently as possible. And so just call in and talk to mama and say, "Hey, I noticed this," or "Have you thought about that?" And that allows them to know that, the extension of our team is interacting with her, and all of the information is being received and incorporated into, what we're putting together for them. So, really providing the plaintiff with the tools to feel heard, and level setting with expectations, in terms of what does justice look like, what can they expect at the end, and also, when might they expect it, and the uncertainties and risks. Juries are incredibly unpredictable, and I might personally think that you have a really strong case, and I know you feel that you do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be the result. So there's just an inherent risk to the entire endeavor, and just making sure that they understand all of that.
Got it. Okay. Now, let's say someone is looking for a lawyer, looking for help, never been through this whole process before, don't know any lawyer to go to. What would be the most important piece of advice you can give to this person as they're doing their search so that they can find that lawyer that has the knowledge, has the experience that they can connect with, and who can really help them get the end result they're looking for?
Yeah, I think it's shockingly hard, because your specific incident is very specific. So it's not, you don't want an attorney who does cancer cases. You want an attorney who's done breast cancer cases, where you've had dense breasts and you've had failed mammograms for a period of 2 years. I mean, you want as close to your fact pattern as possible, because the learning curve is quite steep, and the communication is really important. And this is, I think, particularly problematic for people in rural communities, because you're gonna, you go to your local lawyer and you're like, oh, I didn't get good. I went to the big city and I didn't get treated properly. And the oftentimes lawyers might be willing to take the case, even if they're not necessarily equipped to do it. These medical malpractice cases are incredibly expensive. You're talking $150,000 to $300,000 that the firm is going to spend out of their own pocket, pursuing the case. Because they have to have experts and they have to have, putting on a trial is very expensive. And so, finding a law firm with the deep pockets, with the experience, is really important. And so at Mama Bear Law, we're partnered with 50 across all 50 states with law firms, and so we vet them. And we really try to make sure that if you come to us, that we have someone in your local community who has done your type of case. And that's something that, and then we're partnered with them and connect you with them with a warm referral so that you don't have to go through the process of explaining your trauma over and over and over, which is just exhausting and overwhelming for so many people to have to tell, one of their worst moments of their life over and over and over.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, in that vein of geography, you mentioned that someone's kind of in a rural area, they go to the big city, something goes wrong. Now, how important is it for somebody to get a lawyer that they can actually meet face to face versus someone that's maybe on the other side of the state, but is very, very qualified for their specific case? Which would you kind of put more weight behind?
Yeah, I would say that meeting in person is not as important. However, judges and juries are local. And so having someone who, knows the judges in your jurisdiction is, pretty important. So I think it's a balancing act, around that. I don't think that you as the plaintiff need to see them, but I think it is important that they've worked with those judges before so that they get the right response, when they go in, with motions, etc.
Okay.
So it's a balancing act.
Yeah. Okay. Now, when it comes to the future, where do you think the future of personal injury law is going? I know you talked a lot about AI and how that's going to change things, but where else do you think the future is going?
I think AI is AI. I think it's hugely different, in terms of, I think the volume of cases is going to dramatically increase. I think it's unlocking access to justice, for a lot of people. On the personal injury side, I also think self-driving cars is going to radically transform, the practice of 90% of personal injury lawyers who primarily handle motor vehicle accidents. And so that's going to go from like a easy bread and butter, you file a suit for very little, damages to, complex product liability cases, like did the car malfunction and how did it malfunction? So, the next 10 to 20 years is, I think, a lot of transformation for the better on the medical malpractice side. I think there's going to be a lot more medical malpractice lawsuits, more medical malpractice lawyers. We're going to really understand when the standard of care has been breached, as opposed to just saying known complication. That's what you're going to hear if you have a complaint against a doctor: known complication, known risk. And it's so frustrating for potential plaintiffs. I think they're going to have more of a voice now, with AI.
Okay. And with the future in mind also, what is the vision you have for your practice, Mama Bear Law?
Yeah, so we think that the legal space is consolidating. There's outside capital that's coming in, and a fewer brands, national brands like that. Right now, there's very few of them. We think a female-focused brand like Mama Bear validates women in a way that so many personal injury advertisements don't. They're, about men talking about how tough they are and things blowing up, and and a different type of branding and messaging than we have. So we think that, we're going to be one of the surviving national brands that is in the personal injury space, and really, known not only for focusing on women, but also going deep and looking and uncovering and being thorough because of the, what AI has allowed us to do.
Okay. Well, David, I do have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I do want to point people to your website at mamabearlaw.com. Now, last question for you. What does peace of mind mean to you?
Peace of mind. I think it's a calmness, and kind of a balance, a harmony. So having like a relaxed, kind of a awareness of your outside world, but being calm.
Okay. Well, there you have it. David sharing his expertise. So, David, if people want to get more information, where can they contact you, your practice?
Yeah, Mama Bear Law. Again, we really focus on birth injury, medical malpractice. But if you do have, other types of inquiries, you can talk to our AI agent, Mama, or you can email me directly, droddenberry@mamabearlaw.com, and I'm happy to hear from anyone.
Okay, awesome. Well, David, this was great. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and thanks for sharing your message.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Verdict Signal podcast. Any questions? Please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.